Well, good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening. And this is going to be the Arboretum All Stars presentation presented by the Master Gardeners of Placer County. My name is Brooke, and I'll be your moderator today. As you saw in the opening slides, this talk is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube website after it's been uploaded. The link to the video and the accompanying resources can be accessed at pcmg.ucanr.org website. If you have questions during the talk, you can post them to the chat menu and our presenter will answer them at the end. Now I'd like to present Ann Beinhorn. Ann has been a master gardener since 2003, and one of her special passions is roses. She'll be sharing what these plants make that makes these plants all-stars. Take it away, Ann.
Good evening. I'm glad you can come. We're starting out with just telling you a little bit about Master Gardeners, that everything that we show you and we share with you is research-based, university research-based, and we represent the cooperative extension of the University of California and primarily at Davis. The information that we give to you is for the average home gardener to apply to their own gardening skills, to keep you informed with good gardening decisions. You can find us, we're right out there in the public. Our hotline, here's our hotline number, but these days you can also go on the website. You can leave a question either by phone or by email on our website, and you're very welcome to try that. Anytime you have questions, we may not always respond quickly, but at least within a few days. You'll find us on Facebook, which can tell you what our upcoming events are and little hints about what's going on in the garden at this time of year. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. We have a monthly column in the Gold Country Media, and there are several newspapers that are part of Gold Country Media. We have the Curious Gardener, which actually is free. And the nice thing about this, it comes out quarterly, and each edition of it has to do with the current season. So you can really keep up with what's going on in the season. Just go to our website and find that Curious Gardener subscription possibility. We have the calendar and gardening guide that's just about to be on the market, and it'll be at the local nurseries, the major nurseries around our area. And we're pretty excited about this one. It has a lot to do with gardening in small spaces and gives you lots of hints about what to do at this time of year. Yes, we are doing a workshop right now. We have fairs and we have festivals that we participate in, and there are special events that take place, and we're not going to tell you what all of those are because they could vary. Speakers by request allows you as an organization or group to call us, ask for a speaker on a particular topic, and we'll find that speaker for you. You can provide the venue, and we provide the speaker for you. Our workshops are various venues, and if you want to keep up with us, and we're in several places in person, just come to our website and see what's going on. We're excited that this year we've picked up the Lincoln Farmers Market up at Fowler Ranch, which is the only farmers market that's right on a ranch. We also have a farmers market in Auburn on Saturdays, in Roseville on Tuesdays. Not all throughout the year, these are seasonal. The festival booths are wonderful to visit, and it's usually in Auburn. We have the home shows in the springtime. We have home show in the fall. The garden fair is our very special event where you can meet all kinds of vendors, usually the first week of April on a Saturday. And last year it was in Roseville, and I believe this year it's going to be in Roseville again. We just finished our Mother's Day tour a couple of months ago, and we've done this for numerous years, almost 25 years. So come to our Mother's Day garden tour. You can buy tickets at the major nurseries. This is an introduction to the Arboretum. If you've been out to the UCD campus and you're kind of wondering where things take place, if you see kind of in the middle, there's the Arboretum headquarters. And if they're doing tours for your group, you'll be meeting there. You'll see this map on the Arboretum website, so you can be assured that you know where you're going. And I carry this map when I want to go to their plant sale. If you look where it says Arboretum Teaching Nursery, and it points down to a little spot down there, that's where all the plant sales take place. I think this October, they're allowing the public to come on. At the plant sales that are not open to the public, all you have to do is become a member of the Arboretum, and you can have a 10% discount and be invited to all the plant sales in the fall and in the spring. Once you get there, you'll notice that there are different collections for the Arboretum. There's the Australian, Acacia Grove, Conifer, Desert, East Asian, Mediterranean, Southwest, and the White Flower Garden. And I especially recommend the White Flower Garden when everything's in bloom. It's really spectacular, like something you'd never see anywhere else. And when you see these abbreviations, it's telling you where the plant is going to be found. And we'll go through some of the plants. You'll see. They have a special California native plant garden, the Mary Wattis Brown, which is also just spectacular. The Ruth Risden Storer Garden, a water-wise garden. And water-wise is the big thing today. And there's more and more research by UC to make your plants safer and the environment safer through water-wise gardening. We are in a Mediterranean climate, and we share that with, of course, the countries around the Mediterranean Sea, and Australia, and South Africa, and Chile. And of all those countries, we share the most with Chile as far as our climate changes go, and our throughout time of the year, we're just closest to Chile. In South Africa, we can grow many of their plants because they have a somewhat Mediterranean climate, but they don't tolerate the frost that we get. They don't like to be really cold. So if you're just more careful with these South African plants, you can be very happy with your garden. There is a Department of Natural Reserve system at University of California. And if you went to this, you'd find out more about our Mediterranean climates. And you should know that fires naturally are part of our climate. And over history, we've had lots of droughts and lots of flooding. And we're noticing a lot of drought at this time with the climate changing. Yeah, as well as realizing that every year there's been fires, not just man-made fires. And some plants actually depend on that for their plant cycle. So we have here 3 of your things to look at. These are websites. The first one, of course, is kind of an introduction to the Arboretum All Stars. And it tells you how the All Stars just got started. And it tells you that it's a project of the California Urban Horticultural Association, as well as the Arboretum staff. So you put these 2 that have been working really hard to make the All Stars. I heard about All Stars at a conference in 2008. And it was all very exciting because all over California, university associated places, including the Master Gardener demo gardens, they were trying plants for at least a year to watch them through their whole life cycle and see how they could tolerate and what the climate and what types of weather would be better for them, what types of exposure for sustainability. Your best bet to get started would be the Arboretum All-Star brochure. And I prefer that because it tells you about how to plant, what is an all-star, what to do for follow-up care, and the things to look for throughout the life of the plant. The All-Star database is also through botanical names in order, but starting with A going to Z as well in botanical names. But the database doesn't separate the way the brochure does, separate plants into categories like perennials and ground covers and vines, etc. So what's an all-star? To be an all-star, and this took place over years. They decided that the plants that they chose had to be ones, the top 100 that the people at the Arboretum would definitely recommend. They have to be attractive for most of the year. They have to thrive in our climate. They have to include at least one of these features: drought tolerant, easy to grow, not too much water demand. But two highlights that I think are really significant is you just don't have a lot of pests. And pests come when plants are stressed, and they're not that stressed if they're the right plants. Another one I like is attractive to wildlife, and something I didn't realize at the beginning of the All-Stars, and they're really accentuating that, especially about pollinators and other plants helpers through the flora and the fauna. Grus on Aachen, I think Brooke mentioned that I really like roses, and Grus on Aachen is one of those roses that is spotlighted with the All-Stars. There are only 3, but these are heirloom roses that have been around since the 1800s, and they tend to bloom, well, some of them bloom only once a year, but they tend to be very showy in the beginning. They might have 2 blooms and then fade out a little bit. But the Grus on Aachen is just a lovely rose for me because it's just a color that I love, and I have it in a sheltered place. Some of these roses, especially the heirloom roses, don't like to be in full sun in my climate, but they grow very well if you give them 6 to 8 hours of sun. Here's just another example of the wording. I put these 2 here just to show you the wording, the way that I'm going to copy only what the brochure gives you or what the database gives you to describe a plant. And so this Virginia crassifolia pipsqueak is just such a cute little name, but it's a lovely plant, and it can be pretty low in the climate, and it tolerates in your landscape. It tolerates moist, and it tolerates dry. So here's our database again, looking a little bit more into detail. If you go to the database, it does present things alphabetically, but it doesn't categorize the same way the brochure does. You have to find the plant, then it will tell you what category it falls into. But look at all these categories that they covered. Of course, no annuals, perennial. In the brochure, the first one is perennial, then it goes to ground cover, then vine, then shrub, then tree. And no tree is taller than 40 feet that they are describing. And the trees that they really like to accentuate are the ones that are no more than 25 feet, so they avoid any problem with overhead lines, electric lines. You know that a perennial is a plant that repeats its life cycle every year. And it might be deciduous and kind of die back, but it comes back every year. And a perennial doesn't have woody branches like the shrub or the tree, so it makes it different. So looking a little bit in more detail, on the left column, as you find a plant in the database, it gives you a size, small, medium, or large, and they're talking about perennials, shrubs, and trees. As I said, they really don't have too many tall trees. They really don't want you to put too much attention on those. But it also talks about bloom season, and which is nice for us because we can realize some things can bloom in the winter and be just beautiful and start all that color all the way through the season. Some things are early spring, etc. The water instructions are in cooperation with the Center for WCALS. WCALS is a California water reserve thing that specifies different types of water needs of plants. So it's all very scientific. Another example of how they do one of these perennials. Here's a lovely picture of a perennial, California fuchsia, Epilobium canum, and you might know this as Zauschneria californica, which was the former name, but the botanists are busy kind of figuring out maybe they like a different genus for their plants. So it was changed to Epilobium canum. This is a really easy to grow plant, and it's really beautiful when it's blooming. You can expect this plant to bloom maybe as early as late August and then into September. And those blooms last a long time, and the hummingbirds, they love it. Hummingbirds and beneficial insects. But there are different varieties of California fuchsia. They're only showing you this one here, which gets about 3 or 4 feet tall. But then you compare it to another one. This one's in my garden. And this is in September. And this is the creeping California fuchsia. So the rest of the year, it has this lovely gray-green foliage. And now it has little flowers that are almost identical to the taller California fuchsia. So don't expect the cultivar or the particular plant that they show you to be the only one that would be desirable, because they might be selling at the plant sale the larger one or the smaller one. It's still a California fuchsia and it's still desirable. Here we have a perennial that's called Cape Balsam. Bulbine frutescens is from South Africa, and it does well with part shade. As I said, it likes to be a little protected from the cold too. It's an evergreen perennial that's really got fabulous looking leaves. It look like a grass, but they're thicker and fleshier than a grass. And being a succulent, it's going to be reproducing little offsets all along the sides. So it's probably the easiest plant I have in my yard to propagate. It's just making all these offsets. And then I can give to other friends. And in the wintertime, the special thing about this plant is you can actually fertilize it into the fall because it's setting blooms for the winter. And it's the first thing to bloom in the winter in my backyard. It's very tolerant of bad soil, let me tell you. This is a cute perennial that's really kind of small. It's Virginia crassifolia. It's got pretty big, wide leaves that are meant to be in the shade because they can soak in as much sun as they need. Just a little bit of sun is fine for them. They like kind of moist, shady areas. Shiny leaves. I think it's just a beautiful leaf. And I choose plants not just for the flowers. You'll see plants in the nursery, only the showy plants, the ones that are in bloom at the time you're looking, because they sell so much better. But if you see some of these spectacular leaves, then it might sell you for that. It's very attractive to beneficial insects. I chose 2 from each area, and I'm running into the grasses now, and the grasses are still perennials. Japanese silvergrass doesn't look just like mine on the top here. Some of them are kind of variegated leaves, kind of yellowish or orange. They're just really pretty. And I like it when it's blooming. Here it has kind of a fluffy bloom. And an even more fluffy bloom is the one on the bottom, the Calamagrotis ex acutiflora Carl Forester, or Carl Forester wheatgrass. It's an active, upright fluffy, big, spreading plant, but not weedy. And I find with my grasses, the way I've done here, I like to kind of confine it to an area where I'm going to enjoy it because it's going to want to spread some. And that way I know how big it's going to get. With grasses, if you see them looking like this in the wintertime, you might be thinking, oh, it doesn't look good, I'm going to cut it down. But when you work with deciduous plants, it's better if you hold off during the wintertime and don't go energetically pruning them down. They're kind of nice to look at, I think. Put them in a landscape area where you're not going to be annoyed by dead stuff or by leaves that don't look so great anymore. So think about that where you put them in your landscape and just enjoy them for what they are and how they are shelter for beneficial insects and other little critters that need that care during the wintertime. Ground covers. There's not a lot of ground covers in the All Stars, but one of the most popular is snow in summer, Cerastium tomentosum. And they really like it here. They like it in the Central Valley. They thrive very well. I thought it was fun to find out that Cooper's ice plant is actually an ice plant, but it does very well in our dry climate. And I always thought that ice plants lived at the beach, you know, on the cliffs overlooking the ocean. That's a different kind of ice plant. So we do have a possibility for a lovely ice plant that can creep along and spread and kind of grow as a border for you and maybe grow up a little bit against a fence. And they're so pretty when they're blooming in the spring and summer. Now we're in the vines. And this is California pipe vine, which is host to the California pipe vine swallowtail butterfly. And that butterfly is very dependent because it co-evolved at the time that this plant was coming about in the foothills and mostly near riparian areas near the American River. So a friend of mine was just hiking this springtime, and she ran across one of these little caterpillars. And she could recognize that because he was on the pipe vine and he was living off the pipe vine until he finally went into a cocoon. This plant actually can come all the way down to zone 9, it's where I live. And it gives me courage that you don't have to be in the foothills as long as you have the proper treatment for a plant. It's deciduous, remember that. Hardenbergia, it makes a huge statement, doesn't it? This plant tends to be very woody and strong, and you really need quite a strong support for it. But it's so worth it when you find these lovely, lovely purple flowers. And it looks like this one did very well in the early spring. There are other cultivars too that are white or pink, and I kind of prefer this one. But have a good support and you can really go for it. Now shrubs, I just chose a couple of shrubs for you. And the manzanita is one that I like a lot. And the reason is I think it's a spectacular bloomer and it comes in so many varieties. You don't have to choose the big one, the Vine Hill manzanita, which is a native. It's also called Octostaphylos densiflora Howard McMinn. Octostaphylos means manzanita, and densiflora means, yeah, a lot of dense flowers. You can just figure this out from your English. Walking by mine, and I take these walks in the morning, I saw some just really beautiful blooms in the springtime. And your beneficial insects just go crazy over it. So this is at my house. And this is up in the foothills, and we were visiting a farm, and somebody had taken this shrub and made it look like a tree because they really got rid of these lower branches. And they pruned out some of this dense foliage, which you can do over time, so it doesn't look so much like mine. Or you can really put your hand in and pull out the stuff that doesn't look like it's thriving as well. So the nice thing about manzanita, it's all over California in all different sizes. Does very well in our clay loam soils. The hummingbirds love it too. So you just can't go wrong. You're helping nature. Here we are with other shrubs. The foothill penstemon. This one is showing you kind of a purplish pink flowers, and some of the other ones will show you more blue. It tends to be kind of a woody plant in the end. It looks, you think it's going to be a perennial, but it really does have a good wood base like many of the salvias. I'm showing you Salvia cledandii, the Winifred Gilman one, and that's the cultivar that they're specializing at the All Stars. It's very evergreen. You have to really remember to prune back those older flowers. They turn into seeds, and then the stems get very woody. So you want to remember to do that and get all new blooms. This is mine, but it's a Pozo blue. It's a Cleveland sage, but it's not the Winifred Gilman. Rather, it's a Pozo blue. And they sold this one at the Arboretum. So I walked away with this, and it likes to spread. So I have it in an area that has an L. It's an L-shaped concrete pathway. You can see how the L is in front and then it dips back, and I keep it intact. So it stays there and doesn't spread too much. And that's kind of an advantage for you. And then I'm partial to this plant too. This is my plant. Arbutus, the Arbutus marina, which is the Marina madrone. And it makes these cute little droopy flowers. And then that turns into the fruit, which is a red, a pretty red strawberry looking fruit that is just loved by the birds. So you can't go wrong. In the flower stage, you bring in your hummingbirds, and later on, you have your other birds that are just loving the strawberries. They're not real strawberries, and they are edible, but most people don't try to eat them. Walking down the street by my house, I saw somebody else's, and I took a picture of this so you could see how the Arbutus marina, the Marina madrone, spreads out. This is its natural form. And inside here, kind of hard to see in this one, but it's got beautiful red peeling bark. And this plant calls for very little water to thrive as well as it does. And this guy gets full sun all day. This is one of our prettiest flowers in all of the arboretums, I think. It's a pineapple guava, which forms this lovely flower in the springtime, which turns into fruit that's actually can be edible, but it's not like your regular guava if you're thinking of Hawaii. But people do use the flowers as a flavor enhancer. My hummingbirds are very happy with that too. I have hummingbirds and they live in my small backyard, I think just because I have so many plants that they really like. You know the California lilac. Most people know what the ceanothus is. And here's the one in my backyard, the Ray Hartman that I bought over at the Arboretum. And I'm just showing you part of it now. It's quite a tall plant and it's reaching up over the fence. So it gets big. And you can buy this ceanothus or you can get smaller ones. The Arboretum will sell the smaller ones too. This is the All Star because it's so spectacular as a border plant. It's a native. I like to buy the smaller ones and I try them in different places. And I think in the All Stars, they have 3 of the cultivars of California lilac. Here's some references for you to think over, and I hope you get the handout that's on our website. And remember that we have All Stars that are available to you in spring and fall at our plant sale and their plant sales. So be on the lookout for those and see when they start selling to the public. And remember also to get the brochure and look on the database on your computer. For the brochure, you can download it if you just don't want a piece of paper. Or there's an Arboretum number where you can call them or go to their website, and they might even have a paper copy. The paper copies were published around 2014, 2015.
Thank you, Anne. That was awesome. I learned a lot. Lee would like to know if all the All Stars are non-invasive.
No. Did you see a picture of my, it was a ground cover California fuchsia. It's a very invasive plant. And usually your invasive plants are the lower ground covers, and they have just very few ground covers in the All Stars.
I have some of that epilobium too, and mine's been blooming for about 2 weeks now. And it is lovely. I mean, I have a very big swath of it, and it's just, you can see it from the street. It's beautiful. I'd like to remind our audience as well that in each of the Curious Gardener newsletters, we feature one of the Arboretum All Stars and give you some more information about it. And you can sign up for the Curious Gardener newsletter on our website. Are there any other questions in the chat room? I didn't see anything other than Lee's. I guess that will conclude our presentation for this evening. Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you, audience, for joining us for our Zoom meeting tonight. And we hope to see you in another one soon. Bye-bye.